and welcome to the Culture Report, a weekly report going through all things Miami Heat. This is the place for you to get up to speed with everything that's important, interesting, or simply fun. Whether that's news, game score, box scores, anything that's interesting when it comes to actions, plays, signings, trades, and it's digging deeper into the hows and whys through film breakdown, stats, and analysis. It's bringing you up to speed and giving you a whole roundup of everything that's been going on with the Miami Heat. To start off each report, it's what's been heating up. We're going through the thoughts from the games and looking at some of the X's and O's and breaking down film. We'll be looking at specific breakdowns from each player. It will be looking at individual plays. It will be looking at some of the key takeaways for why they lost or won, or it can be literally anything that caught my eye. For this week, it's looking at one particular thing. It's how Pablo Banchero and Franz were attacking the Heat. First, some thoughts from the game. This was a pretty bad loss, considering how they started the third quarter, where they were still in the game. It was still within reach, and also how they made it not a competition to even allow the starters to come in. We saw Jimmy Butler at the scorer's table looking to check in, but the bench lineup just got blitzed completely, and there was no reason for any of the starters to come back in. That's not a great way to start the season, especially when it's them not scoring 100 points once again. The offense was an issue, and I don't know how bad it is that although it was a big issue, the starters couldn't score, the bench couldn't score. That wasn't even the biggest issue. Like, it still was so demoralizing to see the defensive stuff. It was demoralizing to see the effort on the defense where they allowed the Magic rebound on 39% of the misses. A lot of it was because of lack of effort, where guys simply lost their guy just coming to cut in to get the rebound. They didn't box out. Some of the transition stuff was particularly not good. And it wasn't even guys with size dominating. Anthony Black, Gary Harris, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope combined for 6 of the 18 offensive rebounds. So it was guys their size just out hustling, out effort, and on offense, it's the usual stuff. It's no one that can generate easy looks. They didn't have a good 3-point shooting night, but it mostly starts with the best player. Jimmy Butler scored 3 points on 118 shooting. He took equal or less shots than Nikola Jovic, Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier, Jaime Marcus Jr., Haywood Highsmith, Anthony Black, and Gary Harris. He was 7th on the team in touches and was around 3rd, 4th, just clustered around in the front court touches. And even on the time of possession, he was one of the worst. Haywood Highsmith had basically the same amount of the ball in his hands, and that just can never happen in a game. There should not be a time where the best player has the 7th touches. That shouldn't happen. Can you imagine how easy the Magic's offense could have been to solve if instead of Paolo taking 24 shots and hunting mismatches, it would have been Anthony Black just picking on Hero? That would be a much different offense. That basically was what the Heat were doing. And this whole new offense to start off the season, we'll get onto that later, but this was another way of saying just have Terry Rozier handle the ball for most of it, run some off-ball actions that didn't really get anywhere, have some 5-out spacing that also wasn't maximized and it wasn't also taken advantage of, because there were reads out of the 5-out offense that should have happened. They didn't, and instead it was just shooting poorly at the rim. And there is also an easy fix to some of the issues that we've seen already in game 1, and it's simply the team's best player needs to play like the team's best. The main breakdown of the game was Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner just taking turns hunting whoever they wanted. They combined for 56 points on 15 for 26 shooting from inside the arc, 7 for 14 from 3, and 5 for 6 on free throws with 7 assists. And that alone also doesn't tell you how easy it was for them to just pick apart the whole defense. And it all starts with just him hunting everyone on the team. The first most effective way of doing that was by pushing the pace and beating everyone in transition. It was cross matches with Pablo Banchero and Tyler Hero, and that just resulted in an easy put back at the rim. It was Franz Wagner attacking Tyler Hero, it was Banchero attacking Nikola Jovic. It was anyone attacking anyone in the early offense in transition, and that just resulted in so many easy points at the rim. That just can't happen. if the Magic are pushing pace and just getting those kind of easy looks at the rim, that's at like 5, 6, 7 possessions, then that's going to be a big issue. But for the most part, it was them hunting Tyler Hero, it was them hunting Duncan Robinson, it was them hunting Terry Rozier on picks. One thing that they knew they could just never give up is a switch. The Heat were not going to switch Tyler Hero on Banchero just willingly. So the only thing that they could have done was show and try to recover. It was constantly doing that. It was just trying to get the ball out of the Banchero or Wagner's hands. But all of that did was open up shots for shooters, making the defense scramble like hell because they were just panicking because they were just able to get so many easy shots. One of them, it was a Banchero just making a skip pass. On the other was Duncan showing against Wagner, and it was just wide open poke for free. What Banchero was also being capable of being used as a screener, that pressured the defense. But most importantly, it was also what the defense had to do when the defense was showing. When the defense was showing, all eyes were on Banchero and Wagner. And that just allowed the team to make mistakes elsewhere. It was Nikola Jovic paying too much attention on Suggs popping, and that just allowed a Wagner cut. It was Terry Rozier trying to recover, but then Paolo Banchero going to the post against Bam. But then you had Butler just watching Banchero all the time, and that allowed Wagner for another off-ball cut. And that's how much pressure the whole Magic team was given. It was in transition, getting to the rim. Even in a half court, there was a possession with Banchero just abusing Hayward Highsmith easily to get into the rim, and for why not just finish with a reverse. It was so easy for them, and even when they weren't scoring themselves, it was causing panic everyone on defense, and there wasn't much that they could do. They tried to throw out some zone, and they had 2 wide open looks at the rim. And then when you combine that with the fact that they had shooting luck with from Banchero and Wagner, then they generated also so many corner threes. That was one of the biggest issues. They had the size and then athleticism to finish at the rim, and then you also give up so many open looks. So this was a very easy offense for the Magic, and the thing about the Heat, they just couldn't counter that. They couldn't counter just having at any point of time had either Tyler, either Hayward, either Duncan or Rozier. 2 of those guys were on the court, and that just gave the Magic so many weapons to pick on. Moving on to the main topic of this week, it's only one game, and there's already been so many talks about this, because especially after the preseason they had, how it all looked good, how everyone was cheering for this new offense that they had, where it was pushing the pace, it was scoring 25 points in fast breaks off of turnovers. And as bad as the defense was throughout this game, it also wasn't the only issue. And not sure where I'd stack that as against the defense or the offense. The Heat scored 97 points. But that also wasn't the biggest issue either. The biggest issue was that this whole new offense being talked about. I've been exaggerating at times where I said this is an exact same offense because it feels that way. They run very different stuff. One of the main sources of offense last year was a Bam Adebayo post-up or going to work in isolation. 30% of his offense came that way. Or it was a bunch of Tyler Hero handling the ball and doing it through pick and rolls. So that was the offense last year. And that clearly wasn't the case at all this year. We haven't seen Hero play much of an on-ball role. We haven't seen at all from Bam going to a post. We've seen one post-up from Bam this game. Don't think we've seen much of an ISO either. So this has been a change. Their offense has completely flipped, but that doesn't also mean it's been better. It also doesn't mean that those differences are making a change in itself. They added the element of 5-out offense, but that hasn't translated much. There was an emphasis on pushing pace, but there's only so much you can do in transition when that's only around 20% of your offense. There was a lot more screening. Their shot profile did shift from a lot of the mid-range shots to threes. I don't think they have taken a lot of those mid-range pull-ups. Even in this game, I don't think they've even attempted 4 or 5. they have emphasized getting up more threes. But how all of that works, how they generate those looks still matter the most. And all of those points that they have addressed are complementary pieces. Complementary and things that supplement the whole offense. But there needs to be something that you can build the offense around. And I don't think that's where they have. They don't have some form of action, some form of offense that puts panic on defense. This whole new offense, to me, it's another way of saying it's Terry Rozier handling the ball, trying to make decisions. It's another way of saying your best player is not going to be involved. And one of the questions I've been seeing now, it's how can we figure out how to get Butler or Bam the touches in the offense? And I'm sorry, but what kind of a question is that when it comes to the best player? That's the kind of question you ask how to get Terry Rozier involved, how to get Duncan involved, not how do you get your best player involved. Have we ever had a question mark like this on any other team? I don't think the Lakers have been worried about how to get LeBron James involved in the offense, how to get him more touches. I don't think the Warriors are asking themselves, how can we get Curry involved, even though his primary weapon is being off-ball as well. This shouldn't be a thing to consider. It shouldn't be a thing that he'd have to think about how to revolve an offense around in ways that can also maximize your best player in different ways. Because right now, the new offense is just what happened last year to an extreme, in an extreme direction, and they're just a very different way. It's making your best player be an off-ball weapon. And again, no best player is put in an off-ball role. His off-ball play types frequency has increased each year, and that's been the biggest difference of why their offense has continuously went down. That can only work if you have another on-ball player that can actually put defenses in rotations and bend the defense. A Rozier show doesn't do that. A Bam Adebayo post-up also doesn't do that. A Hero show doesn't do that either. And the only thing that the team has is a Butler leading the team in touches, or at least be close to it. He can't be 7th. He can't be 5th. He can't even be 3rd. He should be equal when it comes to just dominating the ball and actually be engaged and aggressive. Because there are times in this game where he was having the ball, they tried to make a more of an emphasis to get him the ball, get him the pick and rolls in the third quarter. But the decision making, the burst to attack and attack the rim wasn't there, and it ended up with the kind of shots that they had with Rozier just picking things apart. So I think it's really that simple. Even with the whole question about Adebayo being delegated to a corner position where he just spaced into the corner, I don't think that's an issue in itself. It's an issue if you're relying on Terry or Tyler giving him those looks. It's not an issue to have a 5-out offense with Bam if you have someone that can bend the defense, if they have some kind of dribble penetration. It's been said that they have a 5-out offense without a dribble penetration. We just saw how the Nuggets, how the Thunder worked, with Shea picking it apart with his off-dribble drives, and Chet being able to capitalize on that with his shooting, with his just attacking closeouts, his drives, and then his decision making on the go. We could see Bam do that, but something has to happen first to get him those touches in the first place. He's being put in an off-ball role, whether that's in a dunker spot, whether that's cutting, whether that's spotting up from 3 in the corner. It's still being in an off-ball role, but that kind of off-ball role means he's relying on someone else to just get him those looks. So I don't think that in itself is an issue. It's just an issue of what happens elsewhere. As much as you want to say you can get Butler some touches off ball, some off ball opportunistic actions, the way we've seen him, I've seen people say his game against the Hawks in the preseason was exactly what they needed. But those were all just off ball putbacks. It's very scavenger kind of plays. And scavenger plays, putbacks, cuts, they don't bend the defense. They don't force the defense to react. And those plays also mean it's capitalizing on end of possessions. It's Butler himself being put in places where he has to work with someone else. But a Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero action doesn't do it much for him to even be at his best. If he was with Dame Lillard, then that's when you can have a maximized Butler off ball. That's when he's impacted as a cutter, as a mover, just making smart decisions like that, that's when he can be maximised. He's not going to be maximised in any ways you want to just have him in different spots. The only way to maximise Butler and for the team is to just give him the ball and build your offense around that. But it's only one game, but based on what happened in these two last years, there's absolutely no indication that this will change. Butler's touches and use has gradually decreased, and it has fell off the cliff when it comes to his time with everyone else. Last year with him, Tyler, Terry and Bam on together, his usage was 20%, and it was the lowest out of the group. And I don't see why that should change. With how they approach this offseason, with how they approach the preseason, and how they approach this game right now, I don't see why this will change outside of a handful of games. Because there will be games where Butler looks like Butler with his 30% usage, with him leading the team in touches. There will definitely be cases of that. But is it going to be consistent? And that's where I don't think it will. I don't think through 82 games, because he will not play 82 games, and that's another issue. So even if he plays 60 to 65 games, I can't see myself think he's going to be top 3 in touches in most of those games. And looking at right now my notes on some of the actions that they run in this game, it was just pick and roll with Terry Rozier, and there was a double drag that just didn't end up with nothing. It was Nikola being a hub that got a good look. And I tweeted something of where their offense looks like a bunch of individual actions, sets and plays that can get you a look here and there. Some of the 3 points attempts were a case for that, where they did get a couple of good looks off ball, where it was Terry Rozier just coming off a screen. He himself set a screen and then popped off for a 3. That's a good look. That's a good action that gets you a wide open look for a good shooter. But that's also an issue where you're relying on that, because it's not bending the defense. It's not forcing the defense at all. The Warriors and Nuggets are a good example of running a well-balanced offense based on movements, based off cuts. And even their offense has an engine. It's Curry and Jokic. It's them putting a fear in defense one way or the other. Other examples include just a little pick and roll that can consistently take defense off the dribble. There's the Thunder offense where it's Shea just picking the guys apart off the dribble, forcing the defense that way. It's Jokic being an opposed that forces doubles. There is no action that can consistently do that outside of Butler doing something. Every other offense that revolves around movement, unselfishness, ball movement, cutting off screens, like say the Boston Celtics, they're still built on the foundation of something that makes the defense panic. Whether it's a Tatum drive, Brown drive, or the rim pressure they generate. The Heat don't have that. And it is just one game. There are potential solutions, and the solution is simply have Butler be more on ball. But how likely that's going to be will determine whether we'll just continue to see offense similar to that, where it's more 3 points, where it's live or die by the 3. There will be games where they make so many threes that will open things up and they'll have success. I don't think they will be just bad as they were 2 years ago, but they'll be relying on a 3-point variance a lot. When there's a month that Terry is Stephen Curry for a month, that's again going to be a great stretch for them. But then that's again just relying on variance and streaky shooting. And that's going to be their offense. It's going to be a lot of games in the mud again. And there's still so many questions, because I don't envision Bam being used in the way he was used now. I don't see him being used off ball for 90% of it. So there are still so many questions for the offense, but the only solution is just Butler being more on ball. To end the report, here are some tidbits of anything else that has caught my eye, some random stats, lineup data, tweets, actions, or anything in between. First one is the Rozier defense against the Magic. No one was good enough defensively that made a difference, but I also didn't see anyone else have more lapses than Rozier did when it comes to just getting beat off the dribble, dying on screens, or losing cutters. He was quite bad. There were so many possessions where the guy just took him off the dribble so easily. There was a play where Suggs was running behind him in transition. He should have seen Suggs running, and then he just didn't pick him up until it was too late, and it ended up in a easy shot at the rim. It was him losing cutters a couple of times, so not a great defensive game from him. Then related so some of his decision making as well, that was poor. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not encouraged by the offense, where no matter what the tweaks are. Because I don't believe Rozier is a starting level guard on a good team that can be at the top of the team in touches or time of possession. Because if that is the role he's in, a lot of these poor decision making where it's over dribbling a lot of the times. It's trying to do something with the ball and that just wastes times. Or it's not making a pass. Or it's settling for a free when there's a wide open lane that you can attack. So if it is a role that this is going to be in, that needs to be cleaned up a lot. Then there's Robinson, Butler and Bam Adebayo playing 3.7 minutes together. That can't and shouldn't happen at all. Even with foul troubles or different level kind of matchups, the best trio should not be getting so few minutes together. The Heat also allowed a 41.2% offensive rebounding percentage in non-garbage time. That would have ranked second last year. And the number of 40% games, 40% of offensive rebounding percentage that they allowed in the last 5 years. In 2020, they allowed 0. 2021, they allowed 1. 2022, they allowed 0. 2023, they allowed 6. And last year, they allowed 1. So it's not a great start to already allow that kind of bad game. That is it for this week's coach report. We have a game tonight, in a few hours against the Charlotte Hornets. They need this win. It's only second game of the season, but it will look rough if they lose this, especially in a similar way as they did against the Magic. If they can't put up points against the Hornets, against so many players that they could attack, and that's going to be worrying. Especially that they are without Brandon Miller, this should be an easy win for them. And if it isn't, and it's similar concerns, then it's not going to look good to how they started the season.